Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of a part 3 here, which is now we want the player to be able to jump. Okay, so we're going to modify our really simple hero controller here and give it the ability to jump. All right, so for now, quick review, left and right, set our character's velocity here. Okay, but we have no way of making the character jump. So I'm using the A and D keys right now. Okay, so let's look at the script. Double click on Hero Controller. We see it inside of Visual Studio again. And if you'll remember from last time, what we're doing is we're setting the velocity of the rigid body according to this hero movement, this vector to hero movement. The X component comes from the axis, and the Y component is just what Unity thinks it is currently. All right. So we want to be able to cause the player to jump. Now, we don't want to use the axis for that because a jump button would never be a analog stick or kind of it could, well, I guess we could, that could be weird. But anyway, for now, let's make jump be something specific. So we're going to make jump the space key. Okay, so last time I started getting into this, get key down thing to kind of, differentiate between the get key and so on. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that here and say, or let's see. If I go to my game, I can look and see under project settings. Let's look for input. So we have the input axes here, and we had horizontal and vertical. But then we also have, oh, look at this. There is a jump axis. A jump axis. All right, so let's use jump. And now jump is, by default, it's set to the space key, which is fine. So there's already a mapping set up for a jump axis. Awesome. All right, so let's go over here, back to here, and say if input dot get button, well, input dot get button down, and it wants the button name. So the button is jump. All right. So if input get button down jump, do something. All right. And the something we want to do is, instead of setting the velocity of the component, now we want to add a force. Add force. So we're going to add a force to the rigid body. And the force we want to add it in a certain direction. What direction? We want to add it in the up direction. So we'll say transform dot up. That is the up vector for this player. Now let's give it some additional oomph, right? So we'll say times 10, just for starters. Or we could even come up here and say public float oomph equals 10. And that's going to be our extra oomph factor that will hopefully push our character up. Now let's see if this works. If it works straight off, I'm going to be kind of surprised because I want to use this to demonstrate something else if it doesn't work. But let's see. I think it might work. So our character moves, and if I hit space, nothing happens. Now I can see a momentary change in velocity, so I can see that it's sort of happening. And what if I change this oomph setting here? Okay, now our character has a little oomph to it. So in here, add force, by default, it's not an instantaneous force. It's going to be a force that gets spread out over some amount of time. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, I want that to be an impulse. So just to be an immediate application of that force, because it's just a button press. I don't want it spread over time. I just immediately push that player up. So let's come over here, back to our game. Press play, and we fall down and we say, boom. Ah, all right. Very, oh, where'd he go? Much, 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 much more of an impact now. So even if we said 3, 3 is not quite enough. Maybe 10 was okay. Let's leave it at 10. Well, 10's too much. We'll set it to 5. All right. Well, he'd never be able to jump from here to there using that. So maybe 7. Not quite. All right, 9. All right, 9 would definitely do it. Now, the issue at hand is you'll notice if I hit the key multiple times, you can see that it will fire again, and it will just shoot way up into the world because I'm just continuously adding that force. Shoots way up, which is not really good. Wow, it fell so fast that it went right through there. That's crazy. All right, I don't want that to happen. I want to limit that extra jump. Okay. Maybe we should... No, it's only been 6 minutes. Okay, I want to limit that jump to only happen if it was touching something to begin with. So this gets into that concept of grounding the player. All right. So this is a little bit fancier now. So in our hero controller, now we only want to allow, I'm going to go ahead and delete that code. Don't need that anymore. I wanted to only allow this jumping to occur if the player had been touching the ground. All right. So I need to detect that ground collision somehow, or that grounding action somehow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this concept, this overlapping circle concept, right? I want to put an overlapping circle into the scene at what would be the feet of the player here, right? So bear with me and just say, okay, Physics 2D. Physics 2D is, we're going to use the Physics 2D system, and we're going to call overlap circle, or we could call even overlap box. Overlap box, let's try that. And for overlap box, we're going to have a point and a size, which is an X and a Y size, and an angle. Okay, so the point is going to be what? The point is going to be transform dot position. That's the transform dot position. That is the position of the player, and we'll say new vector 2 because we need to give it a size, and the size is going to be what we have, X and Y. So we'll go ahead and it will be X will be 0.5 and Y will be 0.25. So it's just going to be a kind of a little tiny little rectangle underneath the player at that position, and the angle will be 0. Okay. Now, that's not really going to be good enough because the overlapping box, we don't want it at the center of the player. We want it to be underneath the player. We want it to be at the feet of the player. So we have to sort of look at the player here and figure out how far down would it have to be. Now, so right now here is 0, 0 on the player, and I want to be down here. Okay, so if I were to guess, I can look at my grid here, and I know one of these units is 1. So I see here, this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's 0.3 down from there. Even I'll put another create empty, and I'll put this on the hero. And we'll just say 0, 0, 0. So this is a child of the hero. To move it, I would then just move this down a little bit. And lo and behold, it is at negative 0.3. That is the feet of the hero. All right, go ahead and delete that. Let's go back to the script. So for that position, I actually want it to be, I'm going to offset it. So I'm going to add another vector, new vector 2. And the x is going to be 0, and the y is going to be negative 0.3. And we'll make sure to tell them that they are floating point values there. So transfer position plus, I guess it wants a vector 3. And we'll tell it that z is 0. All right. So we're using this here, this vector 3. This is an offset of our overlapping box to be underneath the player. Here's the size of the box, and here's the angle of the box. So it says, okay, if this is true, if this equals true, right? If there is an overlapping box, then do this. If there's not, we are not allowed to jump. Okay. All right, we were able to jump there. Oop. Seems like we were able to jump no matter where we were. Okay, we're still jumping. Why? Well, there's a simple reason. The player also has its collider. Okay, so the collider, the capsule collider that's on the player, here's the hero. Let's zoom in on the hero. You'll notice the hero's capsule collider is right there, which is probably actually touching that box right now. So what we need to do is either move that box a little bit further down. So let's make it move it down another. So now, I'm going to recompile everything in. At this point, the box is going to be a little beneath the character. Oh, still finding it. That's because it's centered there. Of course it's centered there. All right. So let's move it down a bunch. We said that we'll make it a much smaller box. It'll be a sliver of a box. Now, 0.1 will be the height of the box. And we'll move it down by a full half. And now, let's see. So there's a sliver of a little box that we're detecting there. Yep, found it there. So you'll see now I'm pressing the key, nothing. So it's that sliver of a box is underneath the feet. It's probably somewhere right in here. Now if I were, yep, that's pretty good. So I'm allowed to jump when that happens. I'm always allowed to do this side-to-side movement though, which I should also only do my side-to-side movement when I'm grounded like that. So why don't I go ahead and do this? I'm going to take this horizontal axis. I'm going to grab all of this stuff, all of the hero movement stuff, and say, all right, only allow hero movement if the hero is touching the ground, right? Or I should say only allow the modification of hero movement if the hero is touching the ground. So is the hero grounded, right? So now I can move left and right, but the moment I am not touching the ground, I can't change directions. I have to wait until I fall down to change directions. So to jump and get up there, I have to sort of jump at an angle, right? I can't just press jump and over. Can't do it. I have to be moving over and jump, and then I can jump over like that. Let's get some serious air in this guy here. All right, so let's just look at that. Really, 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 really simple character controller. Right? You can get rid of this part now if we want. Kind of tidy things up, and just say, all right, if we are touching ground and we get the input axes, change velocity, does the player want to jump? Add an upward force. Simple stuff. Okay? We'll leave that at that.